You're listening to a Better Mousetrap podcast, a joint production by Marcos Dinnerstein and Far From TV. Our goal is to bring you, the listener, closer to the technology community here in New York City. When it comes to smart cities, Stockholm, Sweden, and Amsterdam, Netherlands are some of the top smart cities in the world, which could be one of the reasons why the Nordic countries were so well represented at this year's Smart Cities New York conference. Marcos and I had a chance to speak with some of the industry leaders, government officials, and those responsible for making these cities connected and smart. In this episode of a Better Mousetrap podcast, you'll hear from Alf Karlsson, State Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Digital Development, Dr. Jacqueline Cramer, Professor of Sustainable Innovation at Utrecht University, and the former Minister of Housing, Spatial Planning, and the Environment for the Labour Party in the Netherlands, and Jasper van Santen, Head of International Business Development for Smart Cities New York.
This is Marcos Dinnerstein, host of a Better Mousetrap podcast.
I'm here with Jasper van Santen, and as one of the organizers of this year's Smart Cities New York. First of all, congratulations for getting it up and running. I know it's a monumental task.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marcos. It's been a lot of work. Luckily, with the success of last year's event, we really had momentum going for us because people had heard of us and were happy to be involved. From the people from the town halls that we've continued to engage, to the consular presence at various events we had during the organizing, which speaks to why. The Dutch are here with 85 people. The Nordics are here with, I think, 110 altogether. The French have brought 30. So there's really, it's a large international contingent. And I think they really want to share their technologies. I mean, there's a true belief in the sharing of and the open data and how, as Minister Cramer just said, or Ambassador Cramer just said, about bottom up and top down. It's not just a top down situation. What we really want from this event this year is we want it to be less of an exposition and more, we want to be a talking point. People go to events and all they do is they see the 50 exhibitors and 50 people or 100 people try and sell to them and follow up. And that's nice if that's what you're in, but we're really trying to share ideas and from different places. So that's really why we value the international input so highly, especially as in the smart cities world. The United States isn't as far ahead, or they're not ahead, they're behind.
Yeah, no, that's been my observation as well. I was lucky enough to have been invited by the Finns a couple of years ago to go to Slush, and it was eye-opening. So I totally cede your point. So how early do you have to start enlisting the major players that you succeed in getting here?
So I'm the head of international business development for Smart Cities New York. So I dealt with a lot of the consulates last year and have continued that relationship this year. I speak to them regularly, especially the Nordics and the Dutch. I'm Dutch originally, so that's an easy connection for me. We started discussing this year's participation probably in August. It takes a while to whittle down who wants to do what. Governmental budgets are complicated. Governments change, bosses change, and to have 100 people here, there's a lot of stakeholders who have to agree. And we're very fortunate with the Nordic representation here, because the Nordics, individually they punch above their weight. As a group, they're, as they just said, the 11th largest economy in the world. And in the smart cities economy, they're probably like second or third. So that really makes them very important. And they recognize that working together is key if they want to have, they have their own representation here as well. But if they really want to have an outsized presence, they have to work together. And they've really done that. And this is something that they're busy with. I think you were at the Nordic Hub, which is a virtual hub in New York, which opened earlier this year. And that was, I think, the first effort they had. They have one in San Francisco, which is a physical location, but this is what their effort in New York has been. With Martje, who is at the Dutch consulate, and fortunately she's now heading off to become the deputy ambassador of Norway. Martje, not only has she been really key in getting all the Dutch stakeholders together, what's also been really interesting is that she's made introductions to us that have been invaluable. So the Blue Tech workshop today was really, that came out of last year's event. The Blue Tech Network is a bunch of it's a platform for people who are interested in water in the New York community, from the architecture side, from the civil planning side, to speak, and they have monthly meetings. But Markia provided that introduction. They're head of their water team at the consulate. His name is Carter Kraft. He knows more about water than anyone has a right to know. And he's American and based out of the Dutch embassy, and he's been another pleasure. So it's people like that who share the same goals we do, and who've helped create this event.
Great. And how did you go about the process of deciding what the workshop topics would be and how they would be conducted?
Well, the workshops were conducted in the same way last year. To decide what they are, we looked at the topics that we wanted to focus on this year. And then there were certain sponsors who really wanted to have workshops as part of their packages, and the Nordics and the Dutch were amongst those. And then there were nonprofits who also had, like the Blue Tech Group, who have a lot to say, and we feel that their input is valuable if they can bring stakeholders. If somebody can bring wonderful stakeholders together, that we'll teach the people who are attending this event what we'd love for them to learn. Like, please come. That's really what it's about. We want to enrich the people who attend these.
Great, thank you so much.
Hold that thought. We need to take a short break now, and when we come back, we will continue our conversation.
Looking to create high-quality videos? Find the right talent and crews in New York City and around the world on Story Hunter. Go to storyhunter.com.
Recently, Far From TV had the chance to sit down with Alex Minea, the Chief Security Officer at BlackBerry. Alex, tell me about BlackBerry and blockchain.
BlackBerry and blockchain. So let me talk about blockchain in general, because blockchain is a fantastic piece of technology. As a nerd, as somebody who knows a little bit more, that I like to think, than the average person about blockchain, I love the technology. I think it's very cool. It's all based on cryptography. It's very well done, and it's very secure. One of the things that I think is a lot of people misunderstand about blockchain is they think it's anonymous. It's not really anonymous. In fact, by definition, it's a public ledger. It's really more pseudonymous. I really see blockchain as a foundational technology. It's not something that is going to necessarily be implemented anytime soon, not necessarily in the next 5 years or so, but I think if we look 10, 20, 30 years down the road, it's definitely going to create the foundations for new types of infrastructure, new types of technology. So from our perspective, we're very excited about blockchain, and we're definitely investigating it, but we really when we look at the short-term applications of blockchain, they're very much focused on cryptocurrency, which is obviously not our core business model. But we're definitely talking to our enterprise customers, and we're definitely looking at ways to deploy blockchain to help them out in the future.
For more interviews like this one, follow A Better Mousetrap podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter today.
We're back. This is Marcos Dinnerstein, and you're listening to A Better Mousetrap podcast. We're speaking with Sweden's State Secretary of Housing and Digitalization, Mr. Alf Karlsson. And if you can tell us about the initiatives in Sweden that you're working on and what problems they're trying to solve.
Yes, so in Sweden we have a very ambitious agenda working on our SDG goals, and especially working to reduce our negative climate effects, so the kind of our top priorities. And in doing that, we try to create smarter and better cities for all our people, and we're trying to create better transport solutions, better waste management, and all other things that consists of helps your life living in a city to get easier. So what we have taken initiatives on lately consists of everything from digitizing the planning and construction process into making all that digital, making all the construction of houses go into a digital process. That's something that would reduce the costs of up to 30 to 40%, while at the same time also reduce the negative climate effects. And we have put on incentives, support subsidy systems on the market to help companies build more innovative and smart, because we think that you should not only work with tax and tax incentives. It's also good to help people, give them subsidies and supporting people to build things better, smarter and newer. And then we have a severe lack of affordable houses, because we think one of the most important things that cities consists of course, is housing, and houses for the normal person. So that's something that we are working on. We put in a new incentive system with great subsidies of almost 400 million euros a year to a system that would create smaller, energy efficient rental apartments for the ordinary person. And at the same time, as I said in the beginning, we are trying to make a system work where we have smart transportation. And smart transportation meaning that we put systems into effect where you plan the municipality, you plan the city for smart transportation. And that could mean public transportation or transportation for just the individual. So these are just a few things, and then we of course have a lot going on in waste management, water management, to get the best, cleanest water possible to people, because water is a pretty expensive resource in many places, and so we want to work on that as well. So these are just a few things that we are working on.
Excellent. I hope that we can learn in the United States from your example. Are you finding in your public-private partnerships that it's generally a cooperative effort? Is government seen as a positive force for companies, unlike the U.S., where often there's an adversarial relationship? What is the relationship like there, if you can generally characterize it?
Well, I would say we have a very good cooperation between different parts of the public sector and different parts of the private sector. As a matter of fact, our Prime Minister, when we took office back in 2014, he said that we should start in programs, cooperative programs to drive innovation, and one of them is focused upon smart cities. So what we did was that we asked the most important stakeholders, whether they are in the private sector or in the public sector or representatives of NGOs, to come and meet with us, representatives of the government, and that they should help us define the challenges, define the problems, and what needed to be done. And we asked them if they could form working groups, that they could help tell us what needed to be done. And we have done that within 5 sectors. One is smart cities, another being a resilient society, another being smart and public transportation. But all these are focused upon cooperation between the public sector, private sector, the NGOs, and to get all the important stakeholders to actually sit together. We have meetings around 4 to 5 times a year, and they have formed their separate working groups. They are working together. There is no public interference from the government in what they do, but what they do is they deliver reports to us. They tell us that if they have defined any problems, they tell us that, hey, could you please, government, help us solve this problem, maybe put in some incentives or whatever. And so far we have had a pretty good result, and I think we have a very good cooperation going on, no matter if it's big companies such as Volvo Cars or Ericsson, or if it's just very tiny little SMEs with 5 to 10 people employed.
Hold that thought. We need to take a short break now, and when we come back, we will continue our conversation.
FinTech Connector is the first exclusive online membership community that connects local fintech entrepreneurs and startups with global professionals, thought leaders, and investors.
Our mission statement is really that we want to revolutionize the way that fintech enablers, and those enablers are thought leaders, subject matter experts, professionals, investors, connect with innovators. Those innovators are the fintech startups, the fintech entrepreneurs.
Connector, when we connect the startups, innovators with enablers, there's that analytical algorithm that's going to match them up automatically, and then they're going to have that opportunity to enter this space, and the innovators are going to be able to take their skills, teach them the process, and help them so that they can add value to their startups.
And that's the heartbeat of the innovator kind of community aspect of FinTech Connector. And then the professionals are people like us who've had, you know, a lot of experience in business that can help the innovators then see their way through to becoming really successful.
We're now in 20 cities, 16 countries.
I think that's what FinTech Connector is about. It's about connecting all these jurisdictions and these locations through the FinTech Connector community and platform.
And there's Dubai and Bahrain and this is Berlin.
So it's at fintechconnector.com. And if you click on the right-hand corner, there's a little green sign-up button. Just click on that, and to help take that innovation from an idea or an MVP to that next serious level. And that's where the diamond in the rough eventually becomes a FinTech unicorn.
We're back. This is Marcos Dinnerstein, and you're listening to a Better Mousetrap podcast.
We're speaking with Jacqueline Cramer, and I wanted to get your brief summary of what your workshop was about and what you hope to accomplish with it.
Yes, well, our workshop was about the circular economy, and particularly the use we can make of data-driven solutions. And the key question during the workshop in groups was, can you explain what kind of solutions do you like to achieve in your country? And actually, the people didn't start to talk about the data aspects, but about the people's aspects, namely, you generate data for people. So don't talk about data, but about the use that is made of the data by the people themselves. So really make your approach of using data inclusive, democratic, and make sure that the people understand what you are doing with all these data, because we live in a big data society and everybody thinks what it is all about. But the interesting thing that we concluded was, no, go back to just those people that are really in need of the answers to the problems that we have to solve. And if you are really starting from there, you are much closer to the solutions that they prefer, instead of coming up with top-down solutions of we are going to install these and these data-driven solutions and you have to accept them. No, it's the other way around. It's listening to the people, give power to the people, and then come with the solutions.
So what aspect of this is circular? I imagine that means it's an iterative process. So, yeah, please.
The circular is, in our view, the circular economy, which means that we need to close the loops of energy, water, and resources in order to make our cities more sustainable. And reduce the environmental pollution, but also create new jobs and new businesses by making circular businesses the priority that you want to achieve. And when you think about what it means, for instance, that we need to collect our waste, preferably separately. And by that we can reuse all the materials. We can reuse our products much more than we do. We just buy all the time new stuff, while we can refurbish or reuse the product. And that is a new economy, which is much more profitable also for the people. And that principle of the circular economy, you can attune that to data-driven solutions in a way that, for instance, all the garbage cans have a sensor that you know when the garbage can is full. Then the collection will start, instead of having all these trucks coming all the time while the bins are not full. We also talked about register the materials in buildings and make sure that you know what kind of materials are in the buildings in order to be able to reuse the materials if the buildings are being renovated or demolished. So then you can really make a circular system. But you have to involve the people in order to make sure that people understand why it is necessary to have all this data equipment. Otherwise, people think Big Brother is watching us instead of helping us.
Makes complete sense. And the actual exercise that you conducted with the various groups, what was the intention of the purpose of that?
Well, we had 5 different groups, and these groups all tackled a specific issue. One was, for instance, urban mining, related to the question, how can we derive all the data from the buildings in order to start a circular economy? And then the people start thinking about what needs to be created, which conditions, in order to make that happen. Another group was more related to how can you create a sustainable energy system. And they talked about what is needed in terms of data to really set up a new renewable energy system. And which data can you use and are understandable for the people that use them. And another one was involved in the question of how can we share data, not only in one neighborhood, but in a municipality and even in a region, so that you exchange all the information you have on resource streams, on where products are and can be reused, so that you really can create interfaces between different platforms of data. So that are the kind of discussions we had. So it was really lively, and people from all kinds of nationalities were there to give input. So it was very enjoyable. But the main conclusion I draw was, wow, you know, I expected a very technical discussion on how to use data and which data are available. But no, it was all about application of data and the people that are going to use the data.
Excellent. Thank you. That didn't need editing, not a drop. And just for my curiosity, how is the implementation of IoT happening in the Netherlands as compared to New York, where it's really it's just, well, it's a big thing as a discussion in New York City, but it has not been implemented in a wide-scale way. I guess the closest thing you could say is IoT is the Link NYC high-speed data kiosks, whose purpose was not ostensibly as an IoT device, but Google has been talking about using their cameras in them to help autonomous vehicles. Yes. So what's going on in the Netherlands in that respect?
Experimenting a lot, but we also discuss the issue of privacy and of, who owns the data? And that's exactly what it is all about, because we have the feeling that Big Brother is watching you instead of helping you. So that is really a big thing in the Netherlands. And that's why it is not yet a full-scale development, but pilots are necessary to see how we can cope with all the negative aspects of data-driven societies.
This is Marcos Dinnerstein, and you're listening to a Better Mousetrap podcast. Subscribe to a Better Mousetrap newsletter for tech events, founder opportunities, feature stories by going to bettermousetrap.nyc. That's bettermousetrap.nyc.
You've been listening to a Better Mousetrap podcast, a joint production by Marcos Dinnerstein and Far From TV. For more interviews like this one, follow a Better Mousetrap podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and don't forget to sign up for the newsletter today.
Looking to create high-quality videos? Find the right talent and crews in New York City and around the world on Story Hunter. Go to storyhunter.com.